A continuación, en Poder 97.1, tu hora informativa. Entrevistas e información para nuestra comunidad. Y ahora con ustedes, Ida Pérez.
Buenos días, mi gente de Rochester, y bienvenido a su hora informativa. Mi nombre es Ida Pérez y para mí es un verdadero placer poder estar con ustedes en esta mañana. Su hora informativa es un programa que les trae información importante que esperamos que los inspire a una mejor calidad de vida para usted y su familia. Cubrimos información sobre los campos de salud, educación, empleo, vivienda y muchos otros temas más que nos afectan como persona y como pueblo. Su hora informativa está aquí todos los sábados de 10 a 11 de la mañana y nos alegramos muchísimo de que estén con nosotros aquí en el día de hoy. Como todos los sábados, que tratamos de traer la información que es importante para ustedes, y hoy tengo una invitada que nos va a estar hablando de un programa que quiero que todos escuchen y que aprendan sobre este programa y que posiblemente, ¿verdad?, le haga bien para ustedes. Le voy a pedir a ella que se presente, que nos diga su nombre y de dónde es originalmente. So I was just saying, this is a program that I feel that is really important, and I'm hoping that it'll help, some people out there that might be listening. And so I wanted you to introduce yourself, to tell us your name, where you're originally from, and how long have you been here in Rochester?
Sure. My name is Theodora Finn. I'm president of an organization in Rochester called the Greater Rochester Housing Partnership. And I did grow up in this broader area in Buffalo. My family's still there and was just there this past weekend. Left Buffalo to go to college, haven't gone back to live there, but about 17 years ago, relocated to Rochester with my husband. So it's been about 17 years.
And where's your family originally from?
Before Buffalo, you mean?
Yes.
Like my roots?
Yeah, your roots,
sure,
yes.
Certainly. So two sides. My dad's side, long time ago from Germany and Eastern Europe, and my mom's side from Italy.
Okay. And what brought them here to the United
really
States?
Interesting. I think, my dad's side, it's a couple hundred years, but definitely his side was Jewish. And so I think the communities that they were living in, they were experiencing some persecution, lack of opportunity, and so came here for that economic opportunity. Yeah. And on my mom's side, they lived in parts of Italy that I think were experiencing high levels of poverty. Yeah. And again, coming over at very young age, 19-year-old great-grandparents who came here to have that economic opportunity, and they did.
Yeah. I always like to ask that question because, some people think we're very different, and we're not.
No.
We all came here, right? We're not, none of us are originally from here other than Native American Indians. But it kind of makes some things that are common, right?
Definitely.
And usually that's why people come, right? Either for a better life, for better opportunities, for education, for job opportunities, following love,
Right?
right? Those type of things. Now, why did you choose Rochester? Because Buffalo's not that far.
It's interesting.
So why Rochester and not Buffalo if that's where you grew up?
I would say maybe not so much deliberate as like happenstance, circumstance. We, my now husband and I were living in Pittsburgh after graduate school for several years, and we got married the same year that we moved to Rochester. And I happened to have a couple friends who were working in Rochester from grad school and had some other connections, and we wanted to be closer to family. Yeah. And the job opportunities kind of just presented themselves.
Yeah.
So it was, didn't have kids at the time, didn't understand how really being very close to grandparents might be helpful, but wanted to be closer to family, and really some great opportunities in my field were presented. And my husband he was sort of one of the first people working in that .com industry. He had that mobile kind of job. And we moved here. And he has a best friend from college who lives in the area too. So we had some friendships here as well.
Cool. Again, because people complain about Rochester, but yet some people come and, make it their home and they really love it here. So, definitely. Other than the weather,
Yeah. Well, I'm used to it. I like seasons.
Yeah, so. I like seasons too, but I wish our seasons would stay in their place.
Exactly. We could balance them out a little differently. Yeah.
Somehow it's shifted, although it's kind of scary, right, when you think about it. But fall is now no longer fall, spring is no longer spring. Summer I feel is shorter, but and I'm sure that has to do with climate change, but that's another topic for another day.
We touch on that.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your organization. You said you were part of the Greater Rochester Housing Partnership. So what is that?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So it means we are a small nonprofit that's been in Rochester for a little over 30 years now.
Okay.
And our mission is to promote the development and preservation of affordable housing in the Rochester region. We've been doing that for a long time, partnering very strongly with the City of Rochester and Monroe County and other partners like Ibero-American Development Corporation. We've been a long-term partner to bring quality housing opportunities to residents in Rochester. We do two things. One is we finance different types of projects. So like the Pueblo Nuevo development that IEDC did in this neighborhood. We were part of that with the financing. And then we have been focused on bringing home ownership, actual houses to people, mostly in the city of Rochester, a little bit in Monroe County for a couple of decades now. And so we build new houses, and that's the program we'll talk about here, for people to buy and start their homeownership journey. And then we've also done a lot in the space of rehabbing vacant homes for purchase by first-time home buyers.
Yeah. Now, I know that, living here, I live right smack in the middle of the Northeast area. And on my street alone, just coming this morning, I kind of counted like 4 or 5 empty lots that we have. Some of them have been purchased by, people that live right next to it, and some of them still belong to the city. As a resident and as a person that I inherited my parents' home, and I hope to keep that home in our family for generations to come. When I look at empty lots like that, I'm like, wow, I wish they could build a house on this empty lot. Even if it's tiny houses, at this point, I really don't care. I just want something in the lot, and some of the lots are easy, they're well taken care of. And then some of the other lots, as a resident, I have to constantly call in and report it and things of that nature. So it has its challenges, and whenever you have an empty lot on your block, it's not a good thing. Sometimes I drive through other streets and I see like, wow, there's a house in every lot. Like there's not one empty lot on the street. But I also know that, building a house can be somewhat expensive. So how does that work for you guys? Like how does this work for you guys? Because you're building houses, people are purchasing them, but how does that work?
Yeah.
How does that really work?
Yeah, so we do it, sure. And we had been building new homes probably, for more than a decade ourselves, but on a very small scale, scattered throughout the city, on, lots like you're saying, within a neighborhood that's already built up, but this particular one might provide a good opportunity. And so it's not easy, and we do it, we're not providing market rate homes that are available at the highest price that, they could get. We are specifically providing homes that are considered affordable housing. So that is a more complex, even way of going about it in some ways than just if we were a private, investor buying a lot and figuring out how to make the home that we can sell in the private market. In that, we have to try to get a lot of different financing sources in place and follow some different rules to be able to develop a home. And so what we have been able to do uniquely through the program that the city launched in 2022 by the block is do that work on a bigger scale. So we did 24 homes in Northeast Rochester through the phase 1. And that was the way that worked is the city really said, we want to try this in Northeast Rochester. We have all of these lots in a concentrated neighborhood based on the demolition that's happened over the years and some of the disinvestment really that's happened over the years. We, the city, are going to assemble these and put them out to see if a developer would come in with a proposal to build on them. And so that's how it works with this project is the city put the lots together in a way where it could have a big impact in one space. And we came in with our team and said, we think we can do this. We'll be the developer. We will partner with the builder. Atlas Contractors LLC is our builder. We came up with design that beautiful, met their standards, and came up with a team, including IADC, to market the homes. And really came in with a big project like that, relatively big. And so that's sort of how this program is working, is multiple homes at one time versus like the one lot in a neighborhood.
But even still, because I've heard some people criticize those type of housing development, that it's not as many as they would like to see, considering the amount of lots that are available in the city, that it is expensive to build, that it could be done cheaper. And I don't know, I don't know because I don't know about building houses. Is there some truth to that? Is there another way that can be done that it's cheaper, faster, and you could build a whole lot more houses and not having to do, so many far and in between phases between building and selling?
Yeah, I can only speak to what the kind of way that we've approached it and our experience. I think, this way we've been able to have a very big impact in a short amount of time. And with the next phase coming on, it's another 30 homes. So 50 homes in the span of 5 years is kind of a lot, especially in the home ownership space, because that hasn't been done before. So a part of it was kind of testing the market too. Are there buyers, for these? How will they get through the process? Will they get the mortgage? And I think what's been great is, we've been able to prove that to kind of justify future. I do think, there are folks who are looking at some different ways of building with modular approach, or perhaps a smaller home that, we don't work in that space with that market. We tend to have folks who do want, at least 2 to 4 bedrooms. So that's who we're serving. But, we're studying those types of methods as well to kind of be sure that if those opportunities exist, that, we understand them. But I don't have the expertise to say, oh yes, it could be done, with a tiny home at a lot.
Because I know even like Habitat for Humanity, that's all volunteers. They have to raise money to do that. But it still takes a long time, right? Because you got to raise the money, then you got to find the volunteers, then you have to find the people that may qualify. And my daughter, in fact, we were just talking about her earlier. She calls me every day. She was able to purchase a house through Habitat for Humanity, but even then, it took her a long time.
Yeah, it is.
And then, with her, there were certain lots that she was offered that she did not want. And so she had to wait. And then the third time they said, well, if you don't pick one now, you're going to have to start all over again. So she did have to pick one. And it just so happens that there was a house that was already built. I don't know what happened with the people. So she ended up getting a better house than what she had anticipated. But that still took a long time.
Yes.
It's like a 3-year process.
It's a process. Yes, for sure.
So I don't, again, I hear people say, oh, we can build more houses cheaper and faster.
Yeah. I'm with you. I don't know that I've seen it in our market yet, but I know there are some different builders and developers who are exploring. And what I seem to be picking up is what they are proposing is more of a manufactured housing or a modular approach. And those have, over the years evolved in terms of a certain quality. We are doing still the stick built, style. So.
And I know that the houses that, I know more about the ones with Ibero, they're really stabled, very well made houses. My father would always say, talking about phrases, my father would always say, the anything cheap ends up being expensive.
Right. Yeah. Right. A penny wise and a pound foolish. Yes.
So you might build houses that are cheaper, but in the long run, it's going to cost the owner more because there's going to be more repairs that they're going to have to do because it was done fast and cheap.
Could be. Yes.
I don't know.
Right.
But I thought I'd bring that up because I just recently heard people talking about that and criticizing, programs like this or the city or whatever, just saying that we could build more houses faster and cheaper and da-da-da-da.
Well, that innovation go for it.
Yeah.
I mean, that would help everyone to
Yeah.
be, but I
Yeah.
think also we're in a space where like just construction costs are,
Yeah.
they were high
Yeah.
to begin with,
Yeah.
post pandemic,
Yes.
and
Yes.
they're going up.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so that's the reality. And
Yeah, yeah. I also know that we have, some issues with housing security for a lot of folks. I remember with the whole, issues that we had earlier in the year with good cause, and affordable rental properties, people, looking for homes, a lot of people losing their homes. I know that it's something that concerns our city, and I agree. I rather have people that are owners than that are renters. There just comes a level of responsibility when people own their own property, and we do have a lot of absent landlords that don't live here, so they don't really know what's going on with their property. And we have some very poor management program, people out there that are not really managing properties appropriately, and so it is an issue. So I'm always in favor of people purchasing a home. Yeah. I've owned a home. I owned a home when my girls were younger, and then I rented for a while, and then I just happened to inherit my parents' home, and I'm grateful for it. Because I don't even know what I would do if I had to rent.
well, sure,
and have to decide, okay, what can I afford? What can I afford, and where do I really want to live?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because that's two different things. You might want to live over here, but you can't afford
exactly.
that. And so it makes it very, very difficult. And I hear families all the time talk about, I really wish I could own my own home.
Definitely, yeah.
And
some people don't want the responsibility.
Yeah,
but
some people don't.
Some people really want it, and the opportunities, aren't that accessible, and it's been harder as well. Like in this real estate market that we've been experiencing, it's not there.
It's not there. So talk to us about Buy the Block, because that is the program that you're doing together with the city and some others. So tell us about that.
Yeah.
What is that? Buy the Block.
Sure. So it is, as I said, a program that the city really initiated, I want to say in 2022. And the goal was to use some special dollars that they got, through the federal government to try to promote more affordable homeownership opportunities in the city of Rochester, while also revitalizing neighborhoods and investing in neighborhoods that maybe have had that disinvestment over the years, like you're saying, even just the demolition. And so leaving gaps that don't allow for that continuity of community. So those are their goals, to create really high quality, new infill housing in specific neighborhoods, to assemble the land, work with a developer or developer partner or developer partners to build the homes and sell the homes. And, while creating those opportunities for folks, help revitalize neighborhoods. And so we have been involved. As I said, we have a wonderful team that we assembled with our builder, Atlas, and IADC, and working very closely with the city and New York State in doing the Phase 1 project, which happened really relatively quickly, compared to what you're talking about, and how long it does take and typically would take. In about a 2-year period, we have had the 24 homes built, sold to first-time home buyers, different types of models, really beautiful and nice quality, and that feels good, and it sort of justified, yes, this can work. And so that was based on the city's RFP for Phase 1, and then they last year, sometime in 2024, issued an RFP to do another phase in Southwest Rochester. And the goal is to build up to 32 new homes in Southwest Rochester, and there are two partners, us as one developer and Habitat as the other. So we are in the process of building our homes. We just finished 3 models on Dr. Samuel McCree Way. They were open this past weekend, got a ton of interest of folks coming through, really, really proud of the impact that they're having over there. And we're about to start building the next 10, which are going to be available for purchase.
Okay. Now, what do people have to do? Like, what are the qualifications? Like, who can apply for these homes, and how does that work?
Yeah. Okay.
Because there's only a certain amount. I'm sure you probably
Exactly.
have more people applying than homes that you can build. So how does that work?
Yeah. Yep. And
how do
again,
you pick them?
there are going to be 32 total. So like if folks have to decide, are they interested in the models we're building or the models Habitat is building? So at least there's that 32 total, not just ours. So there are qualifications. It is limited to households making 80% or less of the area median income. And I do have those numbers here. It's about $50,000 for a family of one and about $70,000 for a family of three. They have to apply through the city of Rochester and provide a whole bunch of backup documentation, showing that they meet the eligibility criteria for the program. They have to be able to get a mortgage through one of our lender partners. So we have 5 lenders who work with us that really are motivated to serving first-time home buyers and to serving folks of different income levels. They have to be able to get a mortgage for the amount of the home that they want to purchase. They do have to bring some of their own funds to the transaction, at least $1,500 of their own funds. And then they are also eligible for down payment and closing cost assistance through the city, up to $8,000. And then there might be some other grants available. IEDC has a small grant that they can apply for, not really small, but a nice grant that they can apply for. Some of the lenders also have some grants. So navigating that process and figuring out what those opportunities are. They do have credit score requirements, so about 640 credit score.
Okay.
And they do have to complete, first-time home buyer training, make sure that they are really aware of what they're getting into. So it's a process of figuring out, educating themselves about the program, the houses that exist. There's a lot of information about that. They can reach out to our organization or IEDC to really talk to someone and learn more about the specifics. Decide which house they might be interested in, then see if they can get a mortgage, for that amount. Once they get that mortgage pre-qual, go ahead and submit an application to the city of Rochester. IEDC can help with the application, putting the full, complete application together. They get qualified, and then they work with us or Habitat to match with the home.
Okay.
And once they're matched with the homes are right now being built, so it's a long process, kind of like you were saying. It's going to be at least 8 months of construction.
Yeah.
Once the house is built, we work to close with the buyer and the city and the lender partner, and we've been able to do those closings within like a month after completion. So hopefully that will be the same in this phase. And then they get to move in, and then it's theirs. So no longer being a renter, taking on all of that responsibility, but also the reward that comes with it,
So what was the qualification? What was the income for a 3 family?
So this is based on, and these figures are on the city's, in the application on the website. This is based on 2024, and the numbers do change in 2025, so they should be on the lookout for that. But in 2024, the limit for a family of 1 is $54,350. Family of 4, $77,600. Family of 6, it goes by family size. Yeah. But that is all on the city website and linked through our website and IEDC as well.
Yeah. It's it's interesting because I know a lot of people that just don't make that amount of money. That would really like to purchase a house. They have a steady job, they're responsible, but they just don't meet that income.
I think I would say it's still worth trying to determine what's your mortgage eligibility, doing a little bit more inquiring about those grant opportunities that might be available, to really not make the assumption, but, not to raise people's hopes, but if they're on the cusp or near, to do a little bit more research to be sure. But, the other thing, and granted, you make what you make in terms of your income. But sometimes what holds people back is credit issues or other types of issues. And so one of the things we as a partnership and with the city have really tried to do is link people to like the Financial Empowerment Center or Consumer Credit Counseling Services to try to help them if they're really, really committed, to wanting to achieve this goal, to make sure that financially everything is really solid, to get to that point. So if those are aspects, make the connection to try to work on those issues.
And I would suggest that even if you're not purchasing a house, thinking of purchasing a house right now, how can you become debt free?
Yes.
So start thinking about that now. Yes. You may not want to purchase a house right now, but you're going to work towards that. So kind of getting your credit cleaned up a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a single person. I feel like I've always made enough money to support myself, but I did have student loans. I had other things, a car, this, that, the other, that kind of puts you in a bind, right? And then also knowing how to use that money from taxes. Like I know, large families tend to get a lot back from taxes. So one of the things that my daughter that I was mentioning earlier, when she bought the house for Habitat for Humanity, when her kids were much, much younger and she got a refund much, much bigger, she would pay the mortgage for the whole year.
Yeah, get it out.
She's just that way. If I'm without a job, I don't have to worry about my mortgage. And so many things were included in the mortgage, like the taxes and the insurance and some other things that, once she paid that, then she paid off a whole bunch of other stuff that she didn't have to worry about. So, people really thinking about, okay, if I do want to purchase a house, and I have some credit issues. I don't have, even though $1,500 is, it's not a lot of money. For some people it might be, but how can I save that, right? Let me think about how am I going to use this money? Because I've also seen people get a lot of money and just blow it.
Totally. Yeah.
Just totally blow it on silly things that they really don't need. And so thinking about, okay, how do I really want to use this money? And what can I put aside for the future because I want to purchase a home? Or, paying off these bills that I have and getting rid of them, and really thinking about your credit cards. How do I use them?
Right. Because it helps in some way.
Yeah, and I see people foolishly use credit cards and then become in debt and then, and then they find themselves in trouble. So, what credit cards do I have? Do I really need this many? What can I get rid of? What can I pay off? How can I bring all of this down? And
Yes, which is why, again, we don't want to discourage people I see that number. And, I think it's worth, if that is something that, you truly want in your life, start on the path.
Yeah.
Really get an understanding. How to be ready and we're not the only program.
Right.
There may be other ways to do it. And use the resources available. And also, some of the lenders, as I said, they have some grants to support. Sometimes those are very generous down payment grants. It's sort of, you have to shop around. It depends. I know a couple are doing personal savings, to your point. So how do you get to that $1,500 of savings match kind of? So there are some opportunities that folks should start to explore.
Yeah, definitely. But I think anyone that's trying to purchase a home really need to think about, okay, what's my lifestyle? Because I think once you do purchase a home, that changes. Your lifestyle changes. What you may have been used to doing and spending money on, you may not want to do that anymore, right? You're going to want to save as much as you can. And I say this because, I retired from Ibero in 2023. And in order to get there, I really needed to look at, because I'm not at retirement age, but I just didn't want to do that job anymore. And I really had to look at my finances and say, okay, Ida, if you're not going to be making the money you're making now, and you're thinking, I just want to live on a part-time job, how am I going to get there?
Yeah, right? You needed a plan.
So I needed a plan. I mean, I had a whole year to plan for it, and I think I did really good as far as paying all of my student loans, paying all of bills that I had. I've only had one credit card for $1,000. I figure $1,000 can get me out of a bind if I need to. I don't need anything more than that. That kind of thing. And cleaning up my credit scores, and then I had a part-time job, and so that money, I just put it away. Like I pretended like I didn't even get that money.
Right.
I just put it away, and I was able to remodel my kitchen, cash. I was able to put a new roof, cash, because I was just putting that money away. And I would kid around all the time and say, I have bail money if anybody goes to jail. I have bail money to get you out. But it's really a mindset, right? And to say, okay, I don't need these things. Like, I don't even go to the store anymore. Because you go to the store, you see things, you buy stuff, then you take it home and you're like, I really didn't need that. I just spent $50 on something that I really don't need. And so really thinking in that way, right? And I think that once people really set their mind on, I really want to purchase a home, then you could do that, but it's a mindset.
Definitely.
Right? It's definitely a mindset.
Yes. And even with this, like you might be approved for the program and matched with your house. Again, like it's going to be a good 8-10 months before you're in. Don't go out and don't go on that cruise, because that's going to impact your ability to actually do this. And so
or buy that car, buy this brand new car or whatever.
Exactly. So that discipline and the coaching around it too.
Yeah, and I think that's what the key is, the discipline, because people want things, but they don't think about, okay, how am I going to get there?
Exactly.
Right. And so savings is definitely one of them. Really one of the things that my daughter does, and I'm really proud of her because she does maintain a house. She's got 2 kids and she works 3 jobs right now, but she keeps track of, she has a budget sheet, she has an Excel sheet where she writes down what she makes and what goes out and where does it go. And, and so, you really have to think that way when you're, and I remember my parents, they were never rich. They never made a lot of money, but they knew how to save, and my mom would get a little bit of extra here, a little bit, and she would put that aside. And she would always put, she would always say, I pay myself first. She would put a certain amount of money away every week or every month or however she did it. But, you really have to think that way.
And you can have a really good life.
If
you,
and
are
they
deliberate
did.
like that.
Yeah, and they did. They, they lived, my mom lived to be 91 and she never needed anything.
Exactly.
And, she always had what she needed. And she was very helpful and generous with other people, and other organizations. I remember when I moved into the house, she would get these letters from places that she would donate, even if it was $10, to the paralyzed veterans or the, kids with cancer or something. I don't know. She had these like 5 or 6 organizations that she would send money to. She was a poor person, but she was also very generous as well. But, thinking in that way of how do I save, how can I spend my money? Do I really need this? And I think that's the part that kind of the paradigm shift, right? That people have to make in their brain. Do I really need this or do I want it? And knowing the difference between one and the other.
When you own it, you might have to do a repair. You have to maintain your life. So you need some little savings to take care of that stuff too.
My daughter's been in the Habitat house for, I think now going more than 10 years. And she just recently bought a new stove and a refrigerator. She had the one that came with the house. She remodeled her basement, which was halfway done for her. So she's purchased some big items, but it's been much years later because what she got was enough for her to be able to save and purchase these things. But definitely, anyone that's thinking of purchasing a house, okay, you really got to think about how you're going to change your lifestyle. Yes,
definitely. Yeah, and again, we have this like rich community of organizations. Ibero, I'm sure you offer this kind of programming, and with the Financial Empowerment Center and CCCS, like there are people who are trained and can coach through that process if you don't have someone to help you with that roadmap.
Exactly. Exactly. So the houses that are coming now, I know you guys just had an open house where people can go see them. Is that open still? Like if people can still want to go see them, they can?
So we have a couple ways. One is we have virtual tours of all of, we're doing 7 models. It's a lot of different types. I know.
7 models.
It's a lot of models. We did 6 in
cool.
phase 1.
Yeah,
we
that's nice.
added one more this time. And so we haven't built all 7. We built 3. types for phase 2. So we have virtual tours that are on the city website, and you can link to it again through our website of all of them. They're really wonderful. Every inch of the house is in that tour.
Nice.
And then we have the 3 models. We have a Hudson, a Woodward, and a Clifford. So a ranch style, and then 2 of our 2-story. One has a full basement, and one is slab on grade. Those were the ones open this past weekend. Those 3 models are under contract with buyers. So in the next couple of months, we're going to be working to get those buyers in the homes.
Yeah.
But we can still accommodate showings. So if there are folks who miss the open houses, they can contact our organization or IADC, and we'll figure out how to set something up so they can get a real in-person feel for the homes, the finishings, everything, because even though the models are different, there's continuity in terms of design.
So tell us about a model. Like what would the average house have?
Yeah. So they are all, as I said, newly built. There were some really high quality design standards that the city put in place. So they wanted to see, number one, all electric heating and cooling systems.
Yes.
That was important. So they all have that. That means we have heat pump heating and cooling, and that means they have central air, which you don't always get. So central air and heat, obviously. They all have a front porch.
Oh, I love front porches.
Exactly. So that was part of just for the way that helps with community.
Of course.
In terms of design, it looks really nice. They all have driveways, detached garages. And then again, we have styles and prices ranging from a 2-bedroom ranch to a 4-bedroom with 2.5 bath, full basement. They have modern finishings downstairs, hard surface flooring that, it's one of the wood style flooring, but the colors are very modern. They have all the appliances in place, all electric. So stove, refrigerator, range hood, and a washer and dryer comes with.
Nice.
They're all energy efficient certified. So they're Energy Star 3.0. That's meant to be a more efficient, which should hopefully save on energy costs over the long term. Just really bright and beautiful homes.
What are the concepts? Like, is it an open concept, or does it have a separate kitchen, separate dining room, living room? Like, what does that look like?
It sort of depends on the home, but definitely open between the kitchen and dining room.
Okay.
It's a very, flowing kind of space.
Okay.
And then the individual, bedrooms obviously are enclosed with the larger homes have a master bath, a bath en suite in the master bedroom, and then a separate bath for the other bedrooms. Half bath on the first floor, and that one of the ranches has 1.5 baths. So really comfortable, I would say, in terms of livability.
Yeah. Because, people want that. People want that open space.
Yes, exactly. Really good for, one of the things that we hear from buyers is how excited they are to host the holidays and host families. And it really is designed, to be able to accommodate that.
You got me on the porch because I love porches. My daughter has a porch on her house. I don't have a porch. I have a real small porch, but I grew up in a house with a porch, and everything happened in our front porch.
You can eat your dinner out there.
Everything.
You make more friends.
We would have, my dad's friends come over with their guitars, and that's where we sang. And it was truly, truly the community porch.
So nice.
Everybody. So I love porches. So people have to first get approved by a bank.
Yep.
And then they can apply for this type of program.
Yeah, we're encouraging, to your point about if your income if it's so much lower, to make sure that that's the really first threshold that we're encouraging folks to do is just contact. We have 5 lenders. They're listed in the information, on the website. Contact one or more, and they'll gather some basic information, tell you how much you could qualify for a mortgage, which could be more, than one of these homes. But starting point.
I remember my daughter for Habitat for Humanity, she had to be working. Like she had to be working. She had to have a steady job. Yeah. I think it required her to have been there for at least a year or so. Are those some of the things that you guys look for,
I mean, I
too?
do think that the lenders do look for work history or some steady income. We do, I have seen, and we don't do that piece of it, but I know that sometimes Social Security income or even folks who are maybe using a voucher for their rent through RHA, that can translate to buying a home. And that voucher can be used throughout the part of the mortgage periods. We have a number of folks who've come through that. So some of those supplemental sources come into play too.
Now, will the mortgage vary from family to family, obviously based on what kind of house they get, what their income is? What's the average mortgage?
In terms of the rates? Yeah. I would say right now, and I haven't taken a close look at like any of those commitments coming through recently, but really, 6 to 7% seems to be that interest rate, and that's just the way the market has changed. And it depends on the individual. So I think we have seen some lower, still in the 5 to 6 range, and then some in the 6 to 7.
Now, does that rate stay?
Yes,
as
it's
long
fixed.
As they're
not very. We
yeah,
require that it's a fixed rate over the long term. It won't vary.
It won't vary because I think that's what's helped my daughter
definitely
a lot because it's fixed and she didn't have to worry about it changing. That's why she could take her money and know how much she had to pay.
Right.
For the entire year, which is very helpful. I know you talked about, the economy of the houses. They're affordable. Not only are they affordable, but they're well built, where they're energy efficient. Obviously everything electric, which is something that we'll probably all have to go to at some point. Right. I don't know if I'm ready to give up my gas stove, but
I have a gas stove too.
Yeah, I know. I love my gas stove, but I know I've had an electric stove before. It did take me a while to get used to it, but eventually we'll all go there. So these are houses that are really built for the future.
Exactly.
Right, of things that might happen. You said they have a driveway, they have a detached garage, I'm assuming a nice side yard.
Yes. A lot of, especially the ones in the Northeast, there are some very generous yards. Those are larger lots, but they all have yards. Also, I guess I'd mention we do have a couple. The ranches are fully ADA accessible, so there is not a lot of opportunity in the home ownership space for folks who have those needs or have a relative with those needs.
Or ranch in general.
Exactly.
I love my house because it is a ranch. I don't have to worry about going up and downstairs. I wish I had another bathroom, but, and I do have a basement, but I love the fact that it is a ranch that I don't have to, because once you get older, it's harder to go up and down the stairs. So it's cool that they have that option because a lot of the new houses are kind of doubles and, have some stairs that you have to worry about. Yeah. So that's pretty cool too.
And then all of the homes meet a visitability standard, which means there's a back kind of ramp going into the back entrance so that it's visitable by someone who may be in a wheelchair on the whole first floor. The bathroom fits their needs. Nice. So that's different too, I think, than what you see normally.
And that, that's again thinking of the future.
Exactly.
Right? Because as you get older, you may be fine, but you may not be as mobile and you need a wheelchair or you need a walker or something like that, to get around. Yeah. So really thinking about the future of who's going to live there. Right.
And one of the models in particular does have a room that it's on the first floor. It's one of the 2-story, right? Not the ranches. The Woodward has a room on the first floor that often folks use as a study, but also has been used for, the grandparent who lives there. First floor, bathrooms accessible,
So if you wanted to bring your in-laws to live with you, you could do that, or grandma.
You might need to. So.
You might need to, right? So again, thinking of the future, right? Of how things might be. What else? What else can you share with us? Tell us, anything else that we may not have covered here. That people need to know about this program. I know documentation is a big deal.
Definitely,
so maybe working on some of those things now.
Yeah. I guess I would share a little bit more, the price points of our homes. Again, the 2-bedroom ranches, $99,000 in this phase, going up to The 4-bedroom with 2.5 bath, almost, about 1,700 square feet, 155. And then a range within, we have a majority of homes in the 120,000, 125,000 price point, which is a lot lower than you would see, on the private market right now. I would say we're still accepting applications. That is why I'm here, getting the word out. We have had a lot of interest, but we will keep taking applications until the right match is made with the home. Also, there are the habitat opportunities if it didn't work out with us. So don't hesitate to apply. That window is open. It's a first come, first serve, first qualified, first served. So in phase 1, we did a lottery. We're not doing that in phase 2. Okay. So we're keeping track of who got everything in first. Then they get to match with their home, and we'll do that puzzle of matching. So please, if people are interested, get in and do the application.
So this will be depending on how determined you are.
Exactly, right.
How much you really want one of these homes.
Do you want one? Exactly.
Yeah.
I guess I would want to share the website and the info of who to contact. Yeah. So, again, we've got IADC, Ibero-American Development Corporation. They are our marketing partner. They have realtors on staff who can help with the tours. Okay. Maria Esther, she understands the application process. She will help folks get their packet together. Her number, 585-467-6410.
Can you repeat it?
585-467-6410. That's Maria at IADC. Another way to learn more is to call our organization directly. We have Christine Pinella on our team who is talking with interested buyers all the time. She understands what we're doing. She can tell about, the exact homes and the addresses, et cetera, if people wanted to drive by, where they're going to be located. Her number, 585-423-6320.
Repeat it.
585-423-6320. And then we've got our colleagues at the City of Rochester and Homebuyer Services. They are immensely involved with buyers. They're the ones who are going to be qualifying. The first step to get to that would be to visit the city's website, cityofrochester.gov/buytheblock, BUYTHEBLOCK. That's where all the information, there's FAQs, things I didn't talk about, are on there. There are maps, there's other information, and the application is there. So you can download the application from their website. You can also stop into IADC for an application. I would call ahead, make sure that someone's there. We have applications at our office. So that information I think is important, how to really tap into getting into the program.
Yeah, perfect. So let me do a little summary in Spanish.
Absolutely.
Because I definitely want, our Spanish-speaking audience to understand what we've been talking about. Estoy aquí con Theo. Ella es parte de la compañía de Greater Rochester Housing Partnership y ella está trabajando con la ciudad, al igual con otras agencias, incluyendo a Ibero Development, ayudando a personas que quieran comprar una casa. Tienen un programa en particular que se llama Buy the Block, quiere decir comprar por bloque, y son casas que ellos están haciendo en diferentes áreas de la ciudad y personas pueden aplicar para poder comprar estas casas. Obviamente, pues las personas tienen que tener, buen crédito, tienen que tratar de ahorrar por lo menos $1,500 para ayudar con el down payment, pero hay otras agencias que pueden ayudar con el resto del costo de eso. Después que uno aplica y empieza ese proceso, pues ellos lo conectan con todas esas otras agencias que están ayudando. Definitivamente necesitan una aprobación de un banco. Ellos tienen 5 bancos diferentes al cual usted puede ir y aplicar para esto. Para más información, ella aconseja de que llamen a Ibero. María Estera ya los puede ayudar con la aplicación y con el proceso, y además ellos también pueden ayudar con el costo del down payment que usted tenga que hacer. El número de ella es el 467-6410. 467-6410. También puede llamar a Christine, que es parte de la compañía de Tío, que es la Greater Rochester Housing Partnership. El número de ella es el 423-6320. 423-6320 y también pueden ir al website de la ciudad y buscar By the Block y ahí tienen toda la aplicación que usted necesita llenar para poder hacerlo. El año anterior, cuando hicieron estas casas, era una lotería, pero este año lo van a hacer la persona que más rápido cualifique. Son las personas que van a recibir la oportunidad de comprar esta casa. So, todo depende, ¿verdad?, de qué ánimo usted tenga, que pueda ir y hacerlo del banco, llenar la aplicación, buscar todos los documentos que necesitan. So, en verdad, los primeros que lleguen son los primeros que van a poder comprar estas casas. Las casas tienden a ser diferentes. Tienen unos de rancho, que es de un solo piso. Tienen casas de 2 pisos. Tienen casas que tienen un sótano, otros que no. So, hay diferentes modelos en los cuales ustedes pueden escoger. Ellos también tienen una manera de usted poder ver las casas o personalmente o por video. Y esa información en cualquiera de estos lugares que le habíamos dicho que podían contactarlo, le puede ayudar con eso. So, definitivamente una manera, ¿verdad?, de que las personas puedan comprar una casa si nunca han comprado una casa y desean comprar una casa. Este sería un buen programa para ello. You know, I've heard that these houses can be, if you were able to pick them up and move them to any of the suburbs, would fit very well there.
I think that's
of
true.
the quality and of the look. And things of that nature.
Yeah.
I've heard Eugenio say that before.
Yes.
You could take any of these houses and put them in a suburb.
At least $500,000.
Yes.
But that said, I think, you know, they fit design-wise in the city neighborhoods.
Yeah.
We are not adopting like a suburban, you know, the garage is detached. It's in the back. We really, with our architect and our builder, studied.
Yeah.
What are the
so
styles?
keep it with the facade the same.
But it would look very good in a suburban neighborhood too.
Yeah. Well, he says the cost of it.
And that too.
Could definitely,
and it would be at least $500,000.
Yeah. You know, and I love the city. Like, I would always live in the city no matter what. I don't think I would want to live anywhere else. So definitely, you know, if I was a new homeowner, I would want to buy in the city and not necessarily in the suburbs, even though, you know, people would want to do that. I would definitely want to stay in the city. So for all those city lovers, right, that just don't want to leave the city, but are also thinking of purchasing a house, this is the way to go. This is how to do it, right?
Yes.
So,
it's a way.
Yeah, it's a, well.
Especially now, again, like we have very low inventory.
Yeah.
People are, you know, first-time home buyers. The price point isn't there with this, you know, homes under 200,000. Very few opportunities like that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of competition, including by investors. So it cuts out that it's a different process. You know, you're not just guaranteed and it's first come, first serve, but there's no competition like that. And the price is set. There are no bidding wars.
Yeah.
The price is the price. So it's different.
Yeah. And I know, like, for example, my house is a very humble little house, you know, and it's already at 80,000. You know, so I'm, you know, so the houses are going to go, they're going to go up. They're, you know, so anything that you invest, you're definitely going to get that money back.
Yeah.
You know, I remember when I moved into the house, it was like 20,000 and now it's 80,000.
Yes. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's something that, you know, like I said, generational wealth, you know, I hope to leave to my grandkids and, you know, that they can also take advantage of it in the future. So whenever you invest in a house, it's just generational wealth that you're leaving for you know, for your grandkids, your great grandkids, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that's definitely one of the goals is to be able to reinvest in areas where, you know, that investment hasn't been, to give people who maybe didn't have that opportunity, the opportunity to have the home ownership as something that can set up future generations. And, you know, one of the things I can say is, while the homes are sold at the price, they have appraised higher. So folks are already moving in with equity, you know, in their home. And so that really is compelling.
And it helps people like myself, because if one is built on my street, it's definitely going to, you know, raise the price and for all of us that are already there.
Yeah, and I think that's also one of the things that we've seen is just how happy the surrounding neighbors are to have that lot infilled, have a homeowner moving in, make new connections. And we've also seen, like, investment in those surrounding homes. You know, it is that kind of like keeping up with the Joneses or whatever a bit. So
and it helps, it helps all the way around, because then these people are going to care about their property. They're going to take care of it. They're going to be involved. Like, I can't wait to have new builders, people living on my street, because we have a block club and I want them to join us and know that they're, we're here all together and that kind of thing. So definitely it's kind of like a win-win type of thing for everyone. Is there anything else that you want to share with us that we haven't covered before we close?
No, I don't think so. Thank you so much for the opportunity. We're very excited. We're here. Yeah. We want to support people, and if this is the right opportunity for them, make it work. So. Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you so much for being here. So I like to close the show by asking if there's a phrase or a saying that you grew up with, and I don't know if you have one.
I mean, things that probably don't relate at all to this, but one that comes to mind, and it only comes to mind because it was said to me again the other day, which is, and this is by my mom, that we're the architects of our own destiny. And that doesn't mean, we all come with the same opportunities, but we can use what we have in terms of talents and develop the goals that we have for our lives and strive for them. And I think that relates kind of to here in what we were talking about earlier. Like if you really want something, if homeownership is something that you want in your life, don't get discouraged and stop. Really try to figure out, what does it mean? And push for it as much as possible to make your life what you want it to be. So,
and I think just like an architect, you start with a thought, and then you start with a drawing, and then from there you go to to the actual building. And I think programs like this is step by step, right? Definitely. Think about, okay, what is it that you want? What kind of home do you want? What kind of environment do you want to raise your kids in or be in, right? And then think, okay, what can I do to start saving money or cleaning up my credit, or, whatever it is that you need to do in order to do that. And, I can't say enough about home ownership. Like I'm so grateful to be in my parents' house. I don't know what I would do if I wasn't, and if I had to continue to rent. I was in a 1-bedroom apartment already paying almost $1,000 for one person.
Right. Yeah.
And that was a lot of money. That's my taxes right there. Yes. That's my yearly taxes for the city, give or take a little, so really thinking about, do I really want to pay rent to someone else? Right. Where I can be investing for myself.
Yeah. And renting is getting to be more expensive.
More expensive and harder to find.
Find a good, exactly.
Harder to find a good place to live in, harder to find a good landlord that's responsive. It's just become hard all the way around. And so I think home ownership is really the way to go for folks that, are planning to be here for a long time and are not going anywhere.
Yeah. And there's more certainty in some ways. I mean, granted, you might have to do the repair or assessments may go up over time, but with rent, year to year, if your lease is changing, and then you may have to disrupt your whole family and move somewhere else. So it's that stability that can come with it.
And I've known people that rented all their lives. Like they've been here forever, 30, 40, 50 years, and they've literally rented all of their
And maybe that's what they like, but
but really not thinking about ownership. How can I do this, right?
I think that's something we realized also, as a team through this process, is there are a lot of people who, if they don't come from a family that has owned their own home, or maybe they're new and it's to the United States and it's different than it would have been, they don't realize that this is even an opportunity.
And that it's possible.
Them. Exactly.
That it's possible.
And we want to try to dispel some of that.
That it's possible and that there's help out there for people that really want to do it.
Yeah.
Maybe this is not the year, but it might be next year.
Exactly.
The year
you
after.
Start building on that.
You start
path.
building on that. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Theo, for being here with us today.
Sorry,
we really
my phone
appreciate
went
it.
Off.
That's okay. That's all right. I probably didn't even notice. That's all right. Thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thank you.
Gracias a todos por acompañarnos en esta mañana. Lo esperamos nuevamente el próximo sábado de 10 a 11 de la mañana en Poder 97.1 FM, la única estación radial latina con dueños y operados por latinos. Por la comunidad, para la comunidad. Esto ha sido su hora informativa, trayendo la información importante que nos inspira a una mejor calidad de vida. Que pasen una linda semana. Hasta la próxima, mi gente.